Hey everyone, Cooper here, host of the fine podcast you're listening to. I just want to let you know that the episode you clicked on has a format that is very heavily inspired by a podcast called The Bookening. To be clear, our thoughts and opinions in this episode are our own, but the format is very similar to this podcast. I just wanted to give you a heads up and give credit where it is due. With that out of the way, enjoy the show. Coming up next, Booking It reads The Last Battle. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Booking It. I'm of course your humble and eloquent host, Mr. Cooper Cobbs, and joining me today is my very good friend, Mr. Tanner Lewis.
Howdy, folks.
Well, right now it's about 9:15 p.m. Our time, and Tanner was telling me before we hit record that it's very fitting for this book that we should record it late at night because, in my mind, the vast majority of this book, at least the part that takes place in Narnia before we get to the kind of heaven place, is done at dark around the bonfire, and I think that that's one of the major tonal things of the book for me is the dark, confusing kind of light you get when it's dark outside and the fire is casting shadows. And Lewis is really good at getting that kind of confusing, no one knows kind of really what's going on, hazy feeling, and he does that really well here. He does it pretty well at the end of the Silver Chair. Anyway, it's fitting that we're doing a late night recording. That's what I'm trying to say. And Tanner, you said you had something to say before we get started here.
Yes. So first of all, I just got back from work, and so I walk in the door, and I hear the most outrageous sounds coming from my family downstairs because our house is weird, and you enter in on a middle second floor. But I come in, and they're playing this game called Dutch Blitz, which you, Cooper, no doubt have heard of. So they're playing Dutch Blitz, and they're like, Tanner, just one round. And I'm like, guys, I promised Cooper I'd record. And they're like, Tanner, one round. Cooper can wait. And so me, who's starving and still hasn't eaten, is trying to get Cooper to bed earlier.
Oh, yeah, you know
and
me.
so,
Gotta get early.
So I'm like, fine, I will sacrifice my stomach to play one round with you guys. And so we get into this game, and essentially you have to. The starting move is essentially anybody that has a 1. And so it goes all the way up to 10. So in the starting move, my dad puts out a 10, and I'm like, Dad, wait, you're doing this wrong. And everybody around me is just laughing and laughing and laughing. And finally I'm like, guys, what's happening? And we're like, they're playing it backwards. And so they were apparently they had tried to trick me before I got into when I got into the game, that I was they were trying to trick me and try to beat me.
Obviously.
But I beat them all.
At their own game. Nice.
At their own game, yes.
Very Last Battle-esque. So you haven't eaten yet? Man, I feel bad now.
No, I haven't eaten yet, but it's probably good for me because, I'm slightly hungry after work, but the longer I wait, the hungrier I get.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm glad you won. I'll just say that.
Yes, I think the satisfaction from winning is going to trump my hunger for the next few minutes.
And a great discussion as well will both satify you and make you hungry. So, it's the best of both worlds here. Well, one more thing, Tanner.
Nothing like a Chick-fil-A Southwest salad to, cure the hunger.
They give you a lot of stuff over there, Chick-fil-A, for your salads. It's a lot.
Yes, they do. I got extra because, being the great employee that I am.
Yeah, being employee. Yeah, come on. Well, Tanner, we recently got a review last Monday, and basically they asked us to do Keeper of the Lost Cities. So I don't know if this person has not listened to our episode where we talked about what we're going to be doing this semester, or hasn't checked out the book list, but we're doing it. So.
We are doing it?
Yeah.
Oh, right, we are doing it.
We're doing. We talked about it. Yeah.
Yes, we're doing book 1.
Yep.
Much to Cooper's dismay.
And I had to say, guys, it was really last resort. I'm like, what can we do that would make sense, that wouldn't take too much time to read, so we can all kind of manage reading it and doing the podcast on top of school and stuff. And and it just kind of was just in my brain. It wouldn't go away. So much to my chagrin, we will be reading and reviewing book one of Keeper of the Lost Cities. If you haven't read it, do so at your own peril. And I'm ready to tear it
Don't
apart.
read it.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time.
Tanner, as someone who might defend it, is saying don't read it. So, okay. Well, Tanner, we're about 5 minutes in now.
But if you want to know my thoughts about it, listen to the episode.
Yeah. We'll
It's
do a
it's
thorough,
gonna be it's
thorough
gonna be
dive.
dense. It's gonna be a lot of Tanner dissing the entire book.
Okay.
Um, uh,
That's exciting. Well, 5 minutes in,
yes,
Tanner, let's talk about the last battle. Any baggage that
my
you want to talk about?
favorite
I know that you came to
Narnia
this as your
book
favorite. I think that it's from what I can tell, you're still your favorite. So maybe
is
talk
still
about
my
that
favorite.
and kind of your baggage, and then why you think it stands the test of time here.
The final chapter of Narnia and of the book is just the greatest. Um, uh, so 7-year-old Tanner reads the entire Chronicles of Narnia, and we're at this. I don't know. We're somewhere in northern Oklahoma in
Hmm.
our RV. What we're doing, I have no idea. Where we were, still have no idea. My parents don't remember where we were. Um, anyways, just this random place in Oklahoma that had like a Yogi Bear type stuff. I can't explain it. It still boggles me to this day. But we're there, and I'm reading Narnia as my 7-year-old self. And as I'm reading this alone, mind you, my siblings were not reading this with me.
Mm.
Um, so
You start breaking
I
down and
finished.
crying, and your siblings are like, "What's going
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that emotional. More like I told my mom I finished the book, and it's like it was this huge book. I'm holding up air quotes for any of those.
on?"
For like
Was it
just
the entire Narnia series in one book?
it was the entire Narnia series in one book. So me as my 7-year-old self is like I've conquered the world.
Right.
Um, yeah, and I had,
Yeah. Come on.
I had conquered Narnia. Um, so very excited about that, but to this day I don't know where we were when I finished it.
Hmm. Well, monumental experience for you then. Yeah, I mean, Last Battle has always been kind of the weirdest Narnia book for me. Like, kind of the most atypical, but also, like I said, the last couple chapters are awesome, and Tyrion is really fun. Donkey is really fun. So it's never been. I don't think it's gonna be one of my favorites per se, but that doesn't mean it's not bad. It's definitely, Narnia is all good, but it's probably closer to top tier. But that means like, top 4 or 5, um, personally. But I've enjoyed it, and like you said, the last few chapters are pretty awesome. And I would argue, and we'll have this discussion when we get to it, but perhaps the greatest ending to not only a series but a book of all time. It's awesome. It's really great. So we'll get there when we get there. First order of business. Let's see here. What do I have written down? I think it's Tyrion. Oh yeah, one more thing. Like I love kind of not Tolkien, Lewis throughout Narnia, the medieval cosmology. We talked about it over the course of the series that we've done on Narnia with the planets and the medieval cosmology there, but just kind of like the epic that C.S. Lewis is telling here. I really enjoyed kind of like the all the stuff where he's kind of foreshadowing the end, like the second chapter, which is where we meet Tyrion for the first time. um, it opens up like this. Basically, about 3 weeks later, the last of the kings of Narnia sat under the great oak, which grew beside the door of his little hunting lodge, where he often stayed for 10 days or so in the pleasant spring weather. So from the beginning, he's like saying, "This is the last of the kings of Narnia," or eventually later he'll say, "The last of the kings of Narnia would do this," something like that. So there's kind of the he's foreshadowing the very end. He's tying all the threads together, and that's pretty awesome. So I enjoyed the entire time with that happening, and Aslan kind of ending the world at the very end, with the things that actually Lewis has set up, and the silver chair, and even before the last battle. So as a payoff and as a culmination to this kind of epic that he's telling, I loved it in that sense as well. That kind of stood out to me this go through.
Yes. I very much enjoy all of the symbolism in this book.
Hmm.
It's very, very, very thick.
Very rich.
Um, very rich. Yes.
Yeah.
I especially enjoy the I describe it as the point in time where Tyrion meets Eustace and Polly,
Mm-hmm.
and then
You mean
until
Jill?
they all yes, yes, Eustace and Jill. Thank you. It's been a long day, folks.
Yes.
Eustace and Jill. When he meets Eustace and Jill until the point where they meet the donkey. And that or his name's Puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, his name's Puzzle. Puzzle the donkey. But like I enjoy that kind of section of the book. It's just like a great I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. It's everything I love about Lewis's writing. Just
Yeah.
the kind of journey esque and the character building that we get, learning who
Yeah.
Tyrion is and like what he's all
The very
about.
end.
It's my
Yeah,
second favorite part of the
for sure.
book.
I guess we better acknowledge that my audio quality is better now. uh, anyway, I have not been recording on my actual
Uh,
microphone up until this point, and now I am. So I apologize for how it sounded before, but here we are. It's late night. We're not starting over. I'm sorry, guys. So we'll continue. Well, yeah. Let's talk about Prince Tyrion, Tanner, the last. No, not Prince. King Tyrion, the last of the kings of Narnia. I have to say, one of the things that's interesting to me about the last battle, and perhaps why I consider it to be atypical when I was younger, is that the book is not really from Eustace and Jill's viewpoint. It's not from one of the protagonists from our world. It opens up with the a story of the ape and Puzzle, and then it jumps into Tyrion and it follows Tyrion. So it's really interesting. Like Tyrion is the main character of this book, really, until the end. Like really, this is not Eustace and Jill's book. This is Tyrion's book, and I think that's really the only Narnia book really where that's the case, right? I mean, I guess Shasta is really the exception to that, but he's not Narnian per se. He's more, and he's a kid as well. So there's that. But Tyrion is a really fun character. He's a really honorable character, and you get to really like him at the very end of Narnia. At the end of well, not just Last Battle, but Narnia itself. And so I love Tyrion. I think he's a great part of this Last Battle book, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's such a beloved book between us.
yeah. I really enjoy him. I think he's a fun character, but he always kind of rubbed me off as like, "Hi, I'm Prince Caspian's twin." Um
Yeah, fair, fair. I will say, I think Lewis, to get around that sometimes for no reason, makes him talk in Old English, like the these and thous and thys, and literally in the same sentence he'll switch over to you or your. Maybe there's some method to there, like he's formally saying some things with thy and thee, and then he'll switch over to be informal. I don't know, but it's just really weird, and he'll do that. He did that in Last Battle as well, with Rillian. So yeah, you're right. He kind of does have to differentiate between him and Caspian a little bit.
yeah. It just not that it's a deal killer for me, obviously, my favorite book.
No, yeah,
But like I just never really thought about Tyrion like as he's always rubbed me as, "Hi, I'm Prince Caspian reincarnated." And
yeah,
I've got no problem with that because they're both like young protagonist kings, but you know.
yeah. I mean, and this is Don Shredder Caspian as well. This is not Prince
Yeah,
Caspian,
no,
Prince
this isn't
Caspian.
Prince Caspian. Prince Caspian is like, "Hi guys, I'm going to go like dominate the world."
Yeah, well, also he's got to kind of have a character arc, whereas in
That's true.
Voyage of Don Shredder, he's different. He has a different arc in Don Shredder, but it's more complete. He's already the king.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy Tyrion. I do see him as a little bit different. My favorite scene, in the early part of the book is when he and Jill just kind of the not Jill, Jewel, the unicorn, just kind of go to town on the Calendars, and and at the very what are you laughing at? They slaughter them too,
No.
and then
I'm gonna read my favorite part. This is why I'm laughing. Go ahead. Keep
okay,
talking.
okay.
Keep talking.
Okay, well, anyway, I feel like it'll be ruined by what you're about to read and say, but I'll say it anyway. Then they feel bad about it, and they like turn themselves in because they feel like they've
Yeah,
have
I'm
revoked the
about to
right to
read
be
what
honorable.
I'm about to read what they said because what they
Okay,
said
go ahead.
just I can't keep talking. I'm finding it.
Okay, okay, yeah. Well, and that really spoke to me. Like you just kind of you've done something in a moment of passion. You thought you were doing the right thing, and in reality, you were somewhat justified in doing so, which is what Tyrion and Jill were. I mean, they were basically killing slaves, and then later on you regret your decision and feel like you kind of tarnished your honor. I feel like that's what happened with like Moses in the Old Testament, where he strikes down the Egyptian who's whipping an Israelite, which is, I mean, that's the guy shouldn't have been whipping the Israelite, and Moses reacted in heat of passion, but ultimately that was wrong and did not serve the purpose that God had intended. So, in the same way, I really relate to Tyrion and Jewel in that case, where they do something rash, they do something that ultimately might have been justified, but really violent, and they feel bad about it, and that kind of made me respect Tyrion and gets, just really gets you to relate to him a lot as well. So, you
Yeah.
found it yet?
Yeah, I found it. So, they they're talking about like how As they don't know how Aslan could have possibly like commanded such terrible things about cutting down the
Right, right,
trees and like just all the stuff. He says he's not a tame lion, Tyrion, of course, and
right.
their favorite excuse. Uh,
Right, I feel like Lewis has now realized that it's become so meta and so kind of like weird to say that already, that he's kind of combating that in this book already.
yeah, he's using it as like an example of somebody saying that like God isn't three
Right, he's like,
people.
I know that people out there have used this in the wrong way, so now I'm gonna like swat them in the face right here.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
So he's like we're murderers. I'm gonna go give up my sword and
Right.
put myself in the hands of these Calmarans. And Jewel says, "You will go to your death then." And yeah, just like I don't know. I always thought this part was funny. Just like their remorse and like even when they were doing the right thing, right? They weren't doing the wrong
Hmm.
thing in what they were doing, but they perceived themselves as doing the wrong thing. And so
Yeah.
they then proceeded to do what they thought was the right thing, but was really just a like
I mean, yeah, and that's a good question you raised. Like, was it? What does Lewis think of their escapade here?
yeah.
Does Lewis think that they were right to turn themselves up? Um, or does he think that they were just being foolish and stupid? So I don't know. I think it's open ended. I really do.
I do
Like I
too. I'm
talked
gonna
about.
I'm gonna put my spin on it and say why I think that they were justified in killing them, just real
Okay.
fast, and why I think that Lewis agrees with me. First of all, it is a very dramatic like realization for them, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not like, oh my gosh, we've it's not we've killed people. Let's go like turn ourselves in. They're like, oh my gosh, we've killed people. Like Aslan's done all of these things. We need to go turn ourselves in. It's just so dramatic and like takes so long for them. It takes like a full page and a half for them to like fully accept that they've to like be dramatic about how long
Mm-hmm.
just like how wrong what they did was. And so I think that it's just like if somebody had hit their hand and like really it was just like a slight bruise, but they're like, "Oh my gosh, my hand is broken." That's what it feels like to
Yeah.
me.
Well, I'm not going to deny. I do think that it's more nuanced than they were right or they were wrong.
Yeah.
I think in this case, Lewis is kind of mocking a little bit their version of their kind of honor, and I think that he does this with Reaper Cheap too. Like in Voyage of the Dawn Treader,
Yeah.
reading it again, there is some stuff where it's like I don't think Lewis thinks Reaper Cheap is 100% right here. Like he kind of actually goads them into sailing through the blackness, right?
Yeah.
Which ultimately, I mean, they find the dude in there, so it's all good. But that part, it's like I don't think Lewis thinks that Reaper Cheap is all the way right here. And so I don't think that. I mean, the chapter is literally entitled "The Rashness of the King," and rashness does imply that they were kind of in the wrong. But I do think you're right. I do think they're being overly dramatic, and Lewis is, intentionally being overly dramatic in the way they portray how they view their honor, and they need to give themselves up, and they're murderers and things like that. So I think that he is not. I think he is mocking. You're right. They're a little bit of their dramaticism, but I don't think he views them or views their actions as moral and right. If that makes sense. So I think that's kind of where I'm landing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that
Yep.
once again, it's very nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
It's not it's not
Yeah.
as easy as a right or wrong.
That's what's so great about Last Battle is, I mean, you kind of, that obviously that the lion is actually fake and Puzzle is really an ape or behind it all, but you're still kind of guessing a little bit as to kind of what's going on and what the end game is here, if you haven't read them before. I mean, I can't remember a time where I haven't, known the ending of this book, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know what a person would think. Like, I actually love to start someone watching Star Wars in episode 1 and 2,
Oh
and just
man.
ask them who they think the Emperor is going to be. That kind of. It's always one of those kind of things where
Oh.
I have no idea what would it be like to experience this story without knowing the end. So Last Battle is kind of one of those things where it's kind of inevitable that I know the ending, and so I can't read it without that lens. But
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see kind of how the moral questions and confusion plays out to someone who doesn't know the ending.
Like starting somebody on the two towers without.
Oh, dude, yes. I've always wanted to do that as well. Seriously.
I
I'm like, I'm just going to ruin this person's experience and just say Two Towers is the first book and see what they think.
I think they would love it.
I think they would too. I think it'd be so cool. Like with Boromir especially. Like,
Yes.
oh man, Boromir dies. How was this gonna tie back in, come back in with Faramir later, and all that kind of stuff. Oh man, and then Gandalf comes back to life, and man. Anyway, yeah,
Yes,
that'd be a
the
really fun
possibilities
experiment.
are endless for everything that
The
you could be
possibilities are
excited
endless.
about.
Okay,
Anyways,
well, Tanner,
that's
we've covered
beside
like
the point.
one or two topics. We got to move on here.
Oh, I know.
Anything else you want to say
I just
about
had a thing.
Tyrion?
I just had a thing. So this is kind of about Tyrion, and I'm losing my thought process. I'm losing my train of thought. But just how like this book is kind of our discussion on Number the Stars. If you remember that discussion, like I think one of the
Oh, yeah.
questions that you had for us was if it was right for you to lie in order to protect somebody
Right. Yeah, that was
else's
a big
life.
part of that discussion.
Yeah. And I feel like that kind of applies to the Last Battle as well. Like the way that this book is, it's like it's it's kind of asking us the hard questions in life, right? We've got these morally incorrect actions on their own, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
lying or killing these people, right? And then we've got the
Right.
morally correct action that it's pursuing, which is justice and
Right.
retribution for the actions that
Wrong
they've done,
actions.
right? And so I just
Mm-hmm.
think that's a part of the reason why I like this book so much. It's like it ties the most into the real world with what we have to deal with in everyday life.
Yeah. I mean, not to mention that's kind of direct allegory of, as Revelation puts it, events that are to be, that are going to come to pass eventually. Um. So
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, we're going to need
And I think we're gonna need to move on.
because we need to get into the final parts where we can talk for like a
We do.
significant amount of
Okay,
time.
so let's briefly cover the ape. I forget his name. Oh, Shift. That's right.
Shift.
And Puzzle. I think that they're a very fun quote unquote Antichrist picture of this kind of sham. And then
Puzzle
this,
doesn't get to go there. Puzzle doesn't
no.
deserve to be there.
Yeah, he doesn't. And he's a fun character from the beginning, and you feel sympathetic towards him and are glad when he's eventually redeemed. I love how many people like Lewis arbitrarily kind of redeems because we like them. You know, like we'll talk about later with
Don't
the
even
Calamine soldier.
Guys, Cooper
We just like the soldier, and then he
Cooper
arbitrarily just like makes him appear in heaven as well.
Cooper
And
hates
so,
this so much.
Anyway, I mean, I like Puzzle. I think he's a great character. He's a lot of fun in this book. I like Shift too. He's a fun character. He gets to be portrayed as ugly later on. Like the photo with him in the slippers is one of my favorite photos.
Yes.
Illustrations in here because it's just awful. So I don't think I have anything like
Yeah,
specific to say, but
Shift. Deception.
Shift.
Very
Decipher. Don't be deceived.
yes. Here's my question. I've always thought this. Do you
Mm.
think that he had the plan to like take over the world the way that he was thinking like the second he saw the lion's mane, or do you think that that came later?
I mean, I think that he had a good long time to think about it when he was like working on it. He's like, I can trick people into thinking this guy's Aslan. Let me just, do a train of thought and see how far I can take this. And eventually came upon the idea of, well, I could basically get them to do whatever I want and make some money and go in with the calendar. Like I think the dude is already kind of wicked, and then you just give him an opportunity and you follow the train of thought, and I think you'd be shocked how fast it would go to where we got here. Obviously, he got used in the end by the Calamine dude,
Yeah.
He was not in charge at the very end, obviously, but yeah, I think it just followed train of thought pretty far
Yep.
and pretty fast. I don't think he premeditated it, but who knows? Maybe he dreamed up if this happened, then I would do this, and the opportunity came. So
This is gonna have to turn into a longer episode because we have so much to talk
it is.
about.
It'll be well. How can it not? I'm totally fine with that. Isaiah's the one editing this anyway, and he's not here to stop it. This is
Too
great.
true. Too
Okay,
true. But wait,
use
I
this in
have
Jill and
wait. While
ahead.
we're talking about evil people that aren't quite evil,
Mhm.
Ginger the cat.
Oh, gotta love him.
I love this character. Like a very dislikable, fun character.
That's the best moment when he just shoots out of the barn.
Yes. And like when he's deaf and like no, when he's mute and he's just like
Oh yes, that's awesome. He
screaming.
becomes it's the scariest thing.
It was okay. This is the only thing I can remember about the last battle, other than I couldn't remember where I was. Right.
Yep.
Like I actually remember. That's the only part that I actually remember from the first time that I read it. I was like,
Okay.
very.
I mean, it's a scary moment. Like
It's
it gets in your
seared
mind.
in my memory.
Yeah.
You know.
The whole idea of the dude just you know can't talk, becomes a dumb animal. Uh, like that's kind of within the rules of Narnia that Lewis has set up. It just becomes a scary thing,
Yeah.
Just the whole idea of from Magician's Nephew, it's established, and really throughout all the books, like the talking beasts are sacred, and the dumb beasts are just kind of regular animals, and so your ability to talk separates you from the normal animals, and to not become or to become a dumb animal and to lose your talking animalness is a scary thing within inside the rules that Lewis has set up. So
Yeah.
it's a great moment.
Yeah. It was one of those moments where it's like when you read Left Behind and you like suddenly start like you set down the book and you're like, wow, I better really love Jesus.
Well, Tanner, let's talk about that actually, because this occurred to me when I was reading Left Behind, and not Left Behind, Last Battle.
Okay. Go.
And regardless of what your views on eschatology are, which we can totally have that discussion, but this is not the place.
We're going to avoid that tonight.
Yeah, you're gonna be hungry for a long time. Anyway, regardless of that, I think that Last Battle is a better Left Behind. Is a better
Oh, 100%.
not left, better End Times book. Not only because it's more loose when it comes to interpretation of Revelation, which Left Behind is not, but the whole idea of it really gets the deception, it gets the confusion that goes on, it gets the all that kind of stuff, and it does it in a way that is, in a sense, more fair to the whole idea of we kind of don't know 100% what's going to happen in the end times. I personally believe Revelation is very symbolic, so like what's going to happen anyway. I think that it was occurring to me last battle is much more accurate and much more it gets the mood better than the bind does, but that's personal.
Totally agree.
Yes.
That
So
there's a consensus between us on this.
good. I'm glad we are in consensus because I was going to address it. I guess we need to talk about it now. Like I said, I really enjoy all the kind of end time stuff. Like I said, so that was a good thing that I enjoyed about this book this time around.
Yes.
So Jill and Eustace in this one are pretty fun, I guess. I like their kind of Eustace continues his characteristic of trying to do stuff in battle but being pretty dumb and bad about it, but having a good heart. Actually, and he killed a guy. He killed his man.
He killed
So
somebody.
he
succeeded.
Yep. And then Jill shoots some arrows.
Yes. You've got to
And,
love Lewis's romance not romance stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're just pals.
Yeah, they're just
pals.
yes.
And I will say some of the stuff that I can remember sticking in my mind the first time I read these books was the whole idea of, man, if we die in Narnia, we're gonna die back home. Like, what's gonna happen with that? And that kind of stuck in my mind as well. So I like that kind of conflict, as they know this is the real deal. Like, this is desperate. This is they've been in dark places. This is the dark place. So what's gonna happen then? I really enjoyed that conflict and that stuff in here.
Yeah. I also think that it's really funny that this time they actually died in their world, but they were alive in Narnia. So
Yeah,
I think they
that's
would have
fun.
survived.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an unanswered question, but I agree. They would probably would just gone straight to the Shadowlands, or I mean, not Shadowlands, the farewell to the Shadowlands place.
Yeah. Oh, don't get us there. We're not there yet.
Nope,
We're not going to the
we're
onion
not.
yet. It's the
Okay,
backwards onion.
let's talk about really the final kind of battle. This is it, by the way. This is a very structurally interesting book. It has a 3 act structure, which is the typical set up the conflict in Act 1 and the characters. Act 2 is the rising conflict. And Act 3 is the climax and the resolution. So we have the first act is Tyrion and, getting captured and then getting Eustace and Jill. The second act is all the stuff that happens with them trying to get puzzle out and the tower and all that kind of stuff. The third act happens around the bonfire. It's the final battle. Then it's kind of over with the third act. And you have like another fourth act where you have all the good stuff that happens afterwards, which is the absolute correct way to structure this, in my opinion, because you have the last battle as the kind of finale, but then you have, the next chapter, as Lewis puts it, at the very end. So I really enjoy that. But let's talk about the last battle of the title here.
Yes.
Like I said at the very beginning, I really enjoy the description of. I can just totally imagine it's just chaos. There are 3 groups fighting. The bonfire is kind of blazing down. It's all orange and red. You can't see very well. You got fire glinting off steel everywhere. Dogs are barking and animals are braying and arrows are flying everywhere. And it's just an awful place to be in. And it's perfectly described. Lewis is excellent at, in very few words, giving us the entire picture, which, might I say, our dear friend John Ronald Reuel Tolkien never could quite succeed at in as few words as Lewis could. So there it is.
Tis
I said it.
true. Yeah. Tolkien can't for the life of him write, or couldn't for the life of him write a good battle scene.
True. I mean, and I will say that it's true as well. But like just the mood, the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Lewis is. I mean, Tolkien is always in Helm's Deep, which is really the only big battle that I guess we get Pelennor Fields as well. Really, the only big battle that we get in
All the
Tolkien's
other ones he
universe,
knocks
which is
out the main
very
character, and then we're done.
exactly. Sorry, Bilbo. But he kind of takes a very bird's eye view of it, quite literally in The Hobbit. But bird's eye view, epic kind of
Yes.
position your troops here, position your troops there. In Last Battle, it's a much smaller battle, obviously, but it's much more moody in terms of the way it's described. Anyway, the
Yeah.
confusion, the chaos, all of it's great. I love it. I love the stakes. I love the barn. We talked about it with the cat and stuff. So, love all that stuff.
Yes, for sure. Can we talk about the dwarves for a second?
Let's talk about the dwarfs. That's a good point. Let's talk about them.
Yes. I've always thought it interesting that, like, I don't know, you've had glimpses before in Narnia of like the dwarves being like these conflicting
Right. Right.
characters. They're not
'Cause you
men.
have Nickabrick and you have Trumpkin. You have
Yeah.
the bad dwarves, the good dwarves.
Yeah, like the very bad dwarves are the dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
Remind me. I'm getting mixed up with the movie right now. In the movie they have, so yeah, it was the dwarves did help the White Witch. Yeah.
Well, okay, so basically, in Prince Caspian, what happens is Nickabrick is like, Nickabrick and his friends are kind of like, well, the White Witch wasn't all that bad to dwarves, and they try to Nickabrick's hag and werewolf tried to bring back the White Witch.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, just like the dwarves being these, yeah, they're good, but
Unknowns.
yes, they're the unknown characters, and we finally see that in this section of
Yeah, and that's perfectly paid off here because, like you said, in Prince Caspian, the second book of the series, we have no idea, how that's gonna pay off with the dwarfs being kind of this intermediate character. But in the last battle, you definitely need a whole like kind of major group where it's like we don't know how they're gonna turn out. They're a wild card here, and the dwarfs are excellent at doing that.
Yes, they definitely are. And like they're stoic. Their stoicism. How do you say it?
Mm-hmm. Stoicism.
Stoicism is just like concerning, right? Makes you examine your own heart.
Yeah.
You're like, am I really like am I really that protective of like of everything? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's impactful. So, I
I
always
view them as kind of like the lukewarm, I don't know, maybe lukewarm agnostics who are just kind of like, I don't really care
the lukewarm
about anything.
Christians even like you could
Yeah,
even go
true,
there.
true.
That's the scary part for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, will you be the what's the guy's name? The dwarf starts with a P, I guess. I forget what his name
Pagan.
is. Yes, Poggin. Are you gonna be the guy who actually stands up, instead of giving in to peer pressure? Or are you gonna be the guy who's kind of like go into your own group and just kill both sides? By the way, that's one of the most haunting moments in this book for me. Is when
Yes.
the dwarves shoot down all of the
All of
horses.
no, it
Oh
wasn't even
man.
the horses. It was the dogs, Cooper. It was the
Oh, was it the
it was
dogs?
all of the dogs.
No, I think it was the horses. Because like you hear like the battle is kind of paused. You hear like a stampede. And you're like, oh, the horses are coming. The horses are coming. And it's about to be this big, the Eagles are coming moment from Lord of the Rings, and then you just hear twang, 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 and bye bye. Yep.
That could
The
be
dwarves are for the. Oh wait, here it is. Here it is. Yep.
the dwarves are
With
for
the
the
thunder of
dwarves.
hooves, with tossing heads, widened nostrils, and waving manes, over a score of talking horses of Narnia came charging up the hill. The gnawers and nibblers had done their work. Poggin the dwarf and the children opened their mouths to cheer, but that cheer never came. Suddenly, the air was full of the sound of twanging bowstrings and hissing arrows. It was the dwarfs who were shooting, and for a moment Jill could hardly believe her eyes. They were shooting at the horses. Dwarves are deadly archers. Horse after horse rolled over. Not one of those noble beasts ever reached the king. Yeah, that's yeah, yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
The
it's
dwarves are for the dwarves.
may we not be that way.
Maybe not. Maybe not. And I think that part in the last couple chapters is great too, where they just kind of refuse to see what's right in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
Like, just Lucy's like, wake up, open your eyes, like look around, eat this, like eat this fruit, and they're like, what are you trying to shove horse manure in my face for? Gosh.
Yep.
So, yeah, I agree. It's scary, and like I said, I think this is much better in terms of Lewis is excellent at providing us just clever parables, situations, problems, whatever. Whether it be like the bell or the apple and the magician's nephew, um, or the book and Don Trotter, and here the dwarves as just kind of little applicable lessons, not moralistic parables, but like nuanced questions that are like, hey, here's a problem to apply to your life, really. So I think dwarves are another example of that, and a long list of excellent examples.
Yes.
Okay, well, Tanner, we're not quite to the end, but let's talk about Tash. This is the precursor to
Yes.
our universalist discussion. So, obviously, when reading this book, I was on high alert of anything that might clue me into Lewis's beliefs on, admitting what happens with the dude at the end. Universalism, if you want to call it that. And he makes it very clear that throughout the book, with the confusion between Tash and Aslan and them being the same things, that Tash is not Aslan. That Aslan is not Tash. And that's another good part of the book, by the way, when the Calormenes call on a god they don't believe in, and who knows, Tash shows up, and the demon and the devil, and basically carries them away. So I kind of like that when it happens when people call down demons they don't believe in and then actually get them, they're terrified. But anyway, I digress. Tash is not Aslan. Is there anything you want to say about kind of the Tash stuff before we move into the discussion on the Calormen being admitted into heaven?
Tash. Wow. You kind of dislike him in The Horse and His Boy, or you're unknown about him, right? You kind of just shove him off as
Mm-hmm.
like this deity that has some sort of power. You learn at the end.
Right, and he's never denied as being fake,
Yeah.
ever. Even
Ever.
in Horse and His Boy.
Yes. Definitely. Like people know he exists. He exists. That's
Right.
not. It's not under question. So just yeah, the section of like when you see Tash flying to the stable, just
Mm-hmm.
the terror of that. Yeah. I think the Tashland thing was really interesting, like all of the discussions that they had there, and just the bear and his innocent gullibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All the questions that were asked there were very, very good. Too many to get into right now, but yes, very good.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, we talked about it in Hoarseness Boy as well. At the very end, like you you appealed the Tash, and so I hand you over to him. That's kind of the thing that we get here as well, which Lewis understood. He got this part correct. So
Yes.
I guess that moves into the discussion of, I guess we got the guy. His name is Emeth. He's a Kalaman soldier. He is set up to be likable. Everybody likes him. Nobody wants to see him go into the barn. He does. And later on, when our heroes are kind of walking farther up and farther in, they meet him. He's made it into heaven. And we have this conversation with Aslan. So basically, they tell a story. And it's a pretty long story, so I won't read it all. But he doesn't like Aslan. He served Tash. It is my great desire to know more of him, but the name of Aslan was hateful to me. And so he wants to go in because he's basically a zealot for Tash essentially. And anyway, I want to read this part. He's talking to Aslan. Okay, this is the chapter farther up and farther in, page 188 in my book. But this is what he says. So I went over much grass and many flowers among all kinds of wholesome and delectable trees till lo, in a narrow place between two rocks there came to me a great lion. The speed of him was like an ostrich. His size was an elephant's. His hair was like pure gold, and the brightness of his eyes like gold that is liquid in the furnace. He was more terrible than the flaming mountain of Ligur, and in beauty he surpassed all that is in the world, even as the rose in bloom surpasses the dust of the desert. Then I fell at his feet, and thought, surely this is the hour of death, for the lion, who is worthy of all honor, will know that I have served Tash all my days, and not him. Nevertheless, it is better to see the lion and to die, than to be Tisroc of the world and live, and to have not seen him. But the glorious one bent down his golden head and touched my forehead with his tongue, and said, Son, thou art welcome. But I said, Alas, Lord, I am no son of thine, but a servant of Tash. He answered, Child, all the service thou wast done to Tash, I account as service done to me. Then by reasons of my great desire for wisdom and understanding, I overcame my fear and questioned the glorious one, and said, Lord, is it then true that, as the ape said, that thou and Tash are one? The lion growled so that the earth shook, but his wrath was not against me, and said, It is false. Not because he and I are one, but because we are opposites. I take to me the services which thou hast done to him. For he and I are of such different kinds, that no service which is vile can be done to me, and none which is not vile can be done to him. Therefore, if any man swear by Tash and keep his oath for the oath's sake, it is by me that he has truly sworn, though we know it is not, and it is I who has rewarded him. And if any man do a cruelty in my name, then though he says it by the name Aslan, it is Tash whom he serves, and by Tash his deed is accepted. Dost thou understand, child? I said, Lord, thou knowest how much I understand. But I also said, for the truth constrained me, yet I have been seeking Tash all my days. Beloved, said the glorious one, unless thy desire had been for me, thou wouldst not have sought so long and so truly. For all find what they truly seek. And that was kind of the end of the conversation with him and Aslan. So Tanner, do you offer up a defense for Lewis here, or would just give me your thoughts, your take on this section?
I had a defense, and then you continued reading, and then the defense just went out the door, and it's just gone. But here's my only take. I think I do not believe in universalism. Let's
Nope. No, nor do I. That's the reason we're having this conversation.
let's set that out on the table.
And here's the thing, Tanner, and I want to say, I don't think Lewis fully believes in it either.
I agree with that. Here's what I think what he's trying to cover is a very tough topic, and he just failed to do it in a way that is entirely theologically accurate within the story.
I agree.
Um,
That's the problem with just his allegory in general. Is he tries to kind of provide a handle, and like we said, sometimes it's awesome, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's just not really what happens.
yeah,
Like if we really did break down the theological implications of the stone table and Edmund stuff and Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, it would probably not be theologically sound.
but it's an allegory, so it doesn't need to be. Um,
Not necessarily, but I think
not
that
necess.
you could argue he has somewhat crossed the line here.
Yes, it. I think this was a simple misstep, in my own opinion.
Yeah.
I think that he's trying to cover. So my mom is obsessed with this book called Seeking All of Finding Jesus. Okay.
Right. My mom is too. Yeah.
Yes, I think they shared this enthusiasm. I don't remember who was the catalyst for it.
Yeah. Chicken or the egg? Who knows?
I know, right? Um, uh, but I think what he was trying to cover is essentially this idea of like you're seeking to find truth, right? I think that
Mm-hmm.
I think what he was trying to do was display Emmett as this guy who was seeking to find truth, and
Right.
in his seek to find truth, he found Aslan, right? His
Right.
misstep was putting him in, was like air quotes here, like killing Emmett, right? When he,
Mm.
after he had that conversation. So Emmett was already, once again, air quotes here, dead when he met
Right.
Aslan, and so it doesn't work. So I think
I see.
that's my thought, right? That's my initial thought. Where my argument breaks down is when he's talking about like all every good work that you did in my name, like if you did a
Mm-hmm.
vile thing, that's I agree with that to some extent. I agree with the vile thing.
Yeah, and I think that actually this is where your argument does kind of work too, and I think that it might be the case. Like I said, Lewis is very clear. Aslan's not Tash. Tash is not Aslan. So you can't do that. I don't think he's a universalist because of that. I think what he missteps in is in trying to communicate the idea that someone who is not a Christian can do something that glorifies God, um, can do something that honors Him, and even though he might do it for a bad purpose, he does it and inadvertently glorifies God. Now, that's a statement that we could have a debate over, and I think I would probably agree with. But the way he presents it, and like you said, presents it in heaven, just kind of like makes it all seem faulty.
Yes. So that was just
And like we said, we can even have a conversation about like people who've never heard the gospel, who are in some jungle in Africa or in the Amazon, and they pray to like this wind deity or whatever, the great spirit, whatever. And i- is that person worshiping God or not? Is that person worshiping Tash or not? We could also talk about that, and he may be trying to cover that as well. But either he fails at what he was trying to accomplish, which is good, pretty miserably, or he was just wrong in the first place. So either way, I don't think it's a good section
I
at all.
don't think so either.
Yeah,
I I step gingerly in this area, and
yeah, I agree. We
I
should.
I kind of just avoid it for the most part,
Yeah,
which is not exactly an admirable thing for a reader like myself. But I just I enjoy the book so much that that's like the one bruise on the
you just chew
apple.
and spit.
Yeah.
You just chew and spit. Exactly.
It's the one bruise on the perfect apple. So,
Yeah, and like we said, I think with a lot of the incongruencies in Narnia, if we had a conversation with old Lewis over a pint in the pub, then we might agree with him. But the way
yes.
they're presented, just strange. Okay.
Everything
Okay, Tanner.
everything makes sense
Oh, go
with
ahead.
an explanation.
It does. It does. Well, we got the death of Narnia. I like the kind of callbacks to Charn with the sun and to
Yes.
Father Time from Silver Chair. We get that stuff, and then we have the final chapters. Farther in, excellent stuff. As I've said earlier, the stuff that reminds me, even though I haven't never known it before, of heaven. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Like just what I believe is the closest I can understand heaven um, on this earth until we experience it for real. So
Yes.
Luz is great at that.
I love his
And
backwards onion though. Like the backwards onion of
yeah,
it. I just love it.
kind of the inverse Dante's Divine Comedy, the inverse of that.
Yes, like every time you go in, it gets bigger. right?
Yep.
It's just, I don't know.
Yep.
It's
Glorious.
bizarre,
Can't comprehend it,
and
but it makes sense at the same time.
it's like it makes absolute sense, and like for it to be anything different would just be weird and contradictory. Yeah.
Yep.
Crazy stuff right there. Anyways, the last portion of the book,
Yep.
we meet Reepicheep, who comes down from literally coming down from the mountain. Oh
Yep.
man. That's when you meet the best side character coming down from a mountain, you know the book's hit its pinnacle.
I might argue next episode that Puddleglum is better, but that's just me. Reapercheep's awesome.
Cooper, when do you see Puddleglum coming down from the mountain? Did you see Puddleglum coming down from the mountain?
Yeah, I know. We'll talk about it next episode. We got to wrap this one up. I
Anyways,
just want to read the last
the
paragraph
last
here
paragraph.
because I
Yes,
think it's
I'm looking at
the
it.
best ending.
Yes, agreed. I want this.
And as he spoke,
I want this as on
Go
my
ahead.
tombstone. By the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll remember that. And as he spoke, he no longer looked at them like a lion, but the things that began to happen after that were so great and so beautiful that I cannot write them. And for us, this is the end of all the stories. And we can most truly say that they all lived happily ever after. But for them, it was only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last, they are beginning chapter 1 of the great story, which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. And there we have it, folks. The end of the Chronicles of Narnia, the end of the last battle, and probably the greatest ending of any book in literature, arguably.
Irrefutably is
So.
more like what you should say.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I would say irrefutably, but one of the best for sure.
I contend that it's irrefutable, but if you were to refute it, that would kind of.
It would take away the whole point of the word.
Yes.
All right, Tanner. Well, we are here. We are dangerously close from doing the longest episode of all time. I think we're gonna skip donor shoutouts because it's late. You're hungry.
Oh,
But patrons, we love you.
we do love you.
Please go to patreon.com/bookinit to support us. $5 or more. Leave us a 5-star rating and review to show how much you love us. Because we are desperate in need of your love. No, that's I'm kidding. That's not true. But we would love it, and it's very heartwarming to see all of you who have left wonderful reviews. It makes our day. Seriously.
It also keeps Tanner from having
with
to
your
do
friends,
these late night recording sessions because he doesn't have to go to Chick-fil-A.
True. Exactly. Pay 10 or more, we get better content.
Too true. Too true.
Anyway, we'll see you guys next time. We'll do a recap, summary, looking back. We'll rank some things, have a fun discussion. Isaiah will be on. Everybody will be on, I promise. It'll be the capstone to our epic discussion of this epic series. Isaiah's going to have a lot of fun editing this, so I'm looking forward to seeing his text when he sees how long these are. But
It's going to be
we'll see
comical.
you guys next week. And until then.
Keep on booking it.